Good morning, good buddies. You got gas. The morning edition. Now, when I say good morning, good buddies, I'm trying to revert back to, well, kind of the language we used when we used CB radios. Now, what does CB radios have to do with cars and gas? And, well, guys, when did you use a CB radio? When you were driving. Yeah, CB radio was an excellent way to communicate with your fellow drivers on the road, emergency lines, and just in general conversations. It was verbal texting, if you will. Yeah, we used it a lot. Now, in the early 1970s, I was part of a van club. I had a van, and we would go on caravans. We used the CBs to keep everyone together and keep aware of what road conditions were and where our members were. We didn't want to get a whole group of guys stuck at a traffic light and a group continue on. So the lead vehicle had a CB. There were a few in the middle. Well, most of us had CBs, but there was always someone at the end that watched to see where everyone was going. Good morning, Chris Costanza. How are you doing this morning? And Jay Black. So, yeah, it was the first mobile phone, basically. You're right, Jay. And it was a way of communicating. That was before texting. It was before car phones. It was before cell phones. It was the manner in which you communicated with your friends and with people on the road. Now, there's a whole lingo and language that went along with CB usage. Hi, good buddy. How you doing? And that was the norm over the speakers. Now, there were many types of CBs. Most of them had a handheld microphone, and I had one when I traveled that looked like a telephone, a regular home telephone. And it was good for me because I have trouble hearing things. Huh? Anyway, so I could hold the receiver up to my ear, and I could better hear what was going on or what was being said. Now, normally I would put the phone back on the unit, and the speaker in the unit itself would broadcast what was being said. And if a conversation struck up that I wanted to become part of or that was directed at me, I would simply pick up the receiver handle, just like on a regular telephone. It had a microphone in the bottom part and a speaker in the top, and I would talk and I would listen. There were no laws against doing it at that point in time when you drove. Morning, Peg. Yes, I'm home. See, you can tell. I'm in the office. So the early CB radios came about in 1945. That was when they were invented. Al Gross was the inventor of the CB radio, as well as walkie-talkies. It's a very simple device once they were produced, but we never gave it much thought. But this was a way of communicating. And they started doing this during World War II, but the CB came out in 1945. And Al Gross started a company, and it became a very well-known company at the time. It's called Citizens Radio Corp. Now, he started that company in 1945, and or in the late 40s. The 45 was his invention, the CB radio, and that CB was Citizens Band. So this was not a military or a government-used band. It was a very low-frequency communications band, and he came out with this, and they weren't inexpensive at the time, and they weren't small. So having them in your car really was a big trick. I mean, they were pretty good-sized units at the time. It wasn't until the solid-state technology and transistors and so forth came out that they were able to shrink the size of them. Now, initially, when radios came out, they were not really affordable, and not many people had them. Businesses used to use them. It was a way of communicating with their drivers, their delivery guys, their service technicians, their people on the road. But again, it was short distance. So more than 10, 15 miles, I don't believe they would reach any further than that. So it was just localized radio communication, not like a ham radio where you can bounce all over the world. So it was a little bit different. Now, there was a license required initially to operate a CB radio. Nobody paid attention to that. No one paid the tax to get the license. And they came out with their different handles. Instead of using your name or call letters, as you do with regular radio stations, they used their own names, like the Rubber Ducky, the Bandit, names we know from movies. But a lot of people came up with that. They, you know, delivered pigs in the back of a truck. You drove Pigpen. Hi, I'm Pigpen. No, not me. The guy that would do. You'll get it. Watch the movies. You'll see what I'm talking about. So in 1960, CB radio service became popular. More small businesses have it. Carpenters, plumbers, electricians, services. A lot of truckers used it. Channel 9 was considered the emergency channel. So you could call for assistance if you had a problem, police issue, or something of that nature where you needed assistance. Yeah, Marlon says 500 watts. There was something about that, but it got shot down legally. Now, in 1973, the gasoline crisis, well, it created another way of using CBs. People would communicate to let people know where gas stations were that actually had fuel, or the lines were lower, or what have you. Now, again, like I said, the CB radios no longer required a license because not many people were getting them, so they didn't start enforcing it. Starting in 1969, Channel 9 was used for emergencies. Channel 10 was referred to as the highway channel. Okay. But because of interference with Channel 9, Channel 19 became the most commonly used channel for truckers and people going over the road. Good morning, Pete and Joey. How you doing this morning? And I remember listening to 19 most of the time when I traveled. And I could communicate with the truckers when I was on the road. And I was a district manager for a company and drove quite a bit. And there we go. Rex Rote coming in with CB with southbound with my britches down. Uh-oh. Ruh-roh. Rex is in trouble. But I used to listen to the Channel 19 to find out where the radar was set up, where the police were set up for speed traps and so forth. And a lot of lingo came out from that. They had their own language. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Now, CB radios are still in use today, and it's another way people communicate while they're driving. That's still used. It's a lot easier to use a CB radio than it is to use a cell phone. You don't have to dial a number. You just pick it up, put it on a station, press the key on the microphone, and talk. It's simple. It's easy. And it's out there still. CBers get to put their 2 cents in, just like we do on Facebook, but you do it over the air. And you're anonymous. You use a name. You don't have to use your own name. No one can track you down or trace you. So that's part of it. Now, CB radios came in many configurations. Like I said, I had one that looked like a telephone. Others are just boxes that look like a radio. I had one in my van. It hung underneath the dash on a slide mount, so I could slide it in, slide it out when I wanted to use it. And it was right alongside my cassette player that I would slide in and slide out as I wanted to use it. Actually, I had a 4-track. I really wasn't all that advanced back in those days. And some people say I'm not now either. Now, later on, CBs came out with 40 channels. Initially, there were 23, and they came out with 40 channels. This made it a little bit easier. You had more channels to go to, more ability to talk to people without being interfering with someone else's conversation. And that's where Channel 19 has a lot of traffic because the truckers, the people traveling, utilize that a lot. All right, now we talked about the special lingo you had when you were driving and using a CB. A Smokey. Well, just like a bear, you call him Smokey Bear. That's a police officer. Highway patrol, local, Leo, whatever the case may be. Bear with an ear. Well, that's one that's listening to your CB. So he's listening to Channel 19, chances are, and they're tracking you. So if you're talking about what you're doing, they got their ears on you. They're listening. They're going to be watching for you. Bear taking pictures. Well, that's a police officer using a radar unit. Bear in the grass or bear in the tree. He's hiding off the side of the road. It's a speed trap. A black and white, simple. Highway patrol in most cases. A lot of states have different colored vehicles, but black and white was pretty standard. Paper hanger. That's an officer giving you a ticket. Customer. Another customer or person getting a ticket. Mama bear. Female law enforcement. Polar bear. Plain white wrapper. Unmarked car. Boy Scout. State police. Smokey. Again, law enforcement officer. Bear in the bush. That's another cop term for he's hiding, waiting for you. Disco lights. Well, those are the lights on top of the police car after they've decided they found somebody. Plain brown wrapper, just like a polar bear. That's a plain Jane police vehicle. Morning, Holly. How you doing this morning? Kitty car. That's a school bus. A portable house. An RV or camper. Little cheese. That's a smaller school bus. Pony Express. Mail truck. Salt shaker. A snow plow. Well, because in a lot of places, the plow also dumped salt on the ground as they went along. Now, here in California, we don't even think about things like that, unless you live in Northern California where it does snow. Or actually, you can see snow from where I live. It's about 40, 50 miles away. Mobile parking lot. That's a car carrier. Bear bite. You got a ticket for speeding. Go-go juice. That's gasoline or diesel, depending on what you're driving. Got your ears on? Are you listening? Yeah, turn your radio on. That's something people would check. And I had that a lot. Driving across country, every once in a while I get, you got your ears on, little guy? And that was because I was in a car. The truckers were in big trucks. So I was a little guy, I guess you could say. And they'd check and ask. And at one point in time, I got asked what my speedometer was reading because the truck in front of me speedometer stopped at 85. Well, so did I. So we calculated what speed we were doing. I made it in record time from Jacksonville, Mississippi to Biloxi. I mean, it was, boy, I was moving. Well, it was bottomed, and I was doing about 4,500 RPM. So you can figure out what it was. Jabber or jabbering idiot. Someone speaking a foreign language on a CB, which in the United States is illegal, believe it or else. A jibber-jabber on Channel 9. That's a foreign language on Channel 9. That's illegal, too. Channel 9 is for emergencies, not for conversations. Rubbernecker. That's a car that slows down and watches a wreck, either on their side of the road or the other side of the road, blocking things up. Watch out for that brake check. And that's usually a lot of traffic as you're coming up on it. Honey wagon. Yeah, septic tank truck. A pumper. Now, some of the movies that you can watch that give you some of this lingo are Dirty Mary and Crazy Larry in 1974. Breaker Breaker, 1977. Probably one of the more famous one, Smokey and the Bandit. One of the greatest movies ever for this, from 1977. The Shining in 1980. Smokey and the Bandit 2 in 80. Smokey and the Bandit Part 3 in 83. Die Hard, they used it there too, in 1988. Dazed and Confused, 1993. The Brady Bunch movie. Really? In 1995. Twister, 1996. American Pie in 2001. Austin Powers, a Gold member in 2002. Without a Paddle, 2004. Dukes of Hazzards, 2005. The Beginning, Dukes of Hazzards, 2007. Live Free or Die Hard, 2007. Transformers in 2008. And then there was the movie Convoy, where they used CB radios as a good portion of what you saw on the screen. Now, music, it was even mentioned in music. Johnny Cash, One Piece at a Time. Jerry Reed, Eastbound and Down, theme from Smokey and the Bandit. Merle Haggard, The Bull and the Beaver. Beck, Novocaine. Really? Weird Al Yankovic, the truck driving song. So, a lot of different ways to find out about CB radios, but it is a part of automotive history. It's a part of trucking history, because it was the way to communicate when you drove, enjoyed the road, or worked on the road. CB radios, a part of automotive history that, you know what? It still lives on. CB radios are still out there, still popular. And again, the benefit of a CB radio over, say, cell phone, you don't have to dial a number. It's free. Once you buy the radio, you don't pay for your airtime. Bonnie says she had one in her car and in her house. And a lot of people did. You'd got a lot of people that would call Mama Bear or Mama at home as they were driving and let her know they were on their way. Kind of warned her to get the people out of the house. I don't know. You could do that too. Michael Jacobs says, Guess it's time to bring that back. Why not? Can't trace your usage of it, unlike with a cell phone where they can find out where you're hiding. Remember, that signal, the tower, doesn't happen with the CB. What was my CB handle? You know what? I never had one, or at least not that I can remember, but I haven't used the CB in probably, oh gosh, since the early 1980s was the last time I used my CB. I finally actually sold it right before I moved up here to Ventura. I still had the one that looked like a telephone. It'd been sitting in the garage for decades, and I had a magnetic base on the antenna so I could switch it from vehicle to vehicle without ever worrying about that. And Bonnie says hers was salty. Okay. Holly says, let's bring them back and let's have a convoy. Hey, we can do that. And we're kind of doing that now with our weekend cruises. We were just on the Collector Car Appreciation Day cruise this last weekend, and I'll tell you what, that could have helped. Would have kept cars together a little bit better, but it was still cool. 200 cars in that cruise, and with CB radios, man, the chatter would have been hot, and I would have loved it. All right, guys and gals, thank you very much for tuning in to GAAS this morning. Bonnie says she got rid of hers in the 80s as well. You know, a lot of us did. Cell phones came into play, and we stopped using the CBs. But they're still out there. They're still available, and they're still a lot of fun. I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got GAAS, the Great American Auto Scene, brought to you by Valley Head Service, Irwindale Speedway Drag Strip, Moon Eyes, Beach Underwriting Associates, Tucker Tire, and Service Tech. Service Tech also going to be sponsoring this evening's GAAS. That's right. You get GAAS. It's 2 for Tuesday. GAAS this evening. Now, check my Facebook page. I'll give you the link. You can be part of the audience visually. We're going to be going on Zoom. Holly's saying, I just sold a house set up last year and an estate sale. Yep, home units, very popular for CBs. Again, I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got GAAS, the morning edition. We'll see you this evening, 6 p.m. on Zoom. And I'll post the link and the topic for tonight. We'll have a guest. Well, hopefully we've got a guest. Said he's going to be there. We'll talk about some other things as well. I'm Hot Rod Bob. See you later this evening, 6 p.m. on Zoom. I'll put the link on my Facebook page. As a matter of fact, it's already there, but I'll put it up again. Randy Kerdoon, Anna Octane, special guest, and you, if you want to tune in. It's free on Zoom this evening. Evening GAAS, back again, brought to you by Service Tech Equipment, the guys you need when you need the equipment to work on your car. Service Tech. Craig Heidenthal and the group. They'll be with us. Take care, folks. We'll talk to you later on. Have a great day. I'm eastbound and down.